Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another marriage devotion. This week's devotion by Jimmy Evans is titled The Power of Words, and our scripture is from Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 21. And this is one of my favorite scriptures, as my family can attest, because
Yes.
I quote it to them often.
Often.
Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. You know, communication in marriage is a lifeline of information, conflict resolution, and affection. To be able to communicate effectively, you must understand the extreme power of your words.
In relationships, words are tremendously powerful for good or for bad. In every good relationship, there is an exchange of many positive words. These words act as seeds that create a powerful and disproportionate harvest. The same is true in bad relationships. In every bitter or unsatisfactory marriage, there are either few words exchanged or few seeds planted, or there are negative words exchanged, which are bad seeds planted. Literally, the power of life and death for any relationship is in your mouth. You possess an incredible ability to give life or death, encouragement or discouragement, truth or deception, praise or criticism, hurt or help to those around you. And those words are so powerful, and we need to realize that, everything that comes out of our mouth, we're accountable for. And I had a gentleman that I pastored years ago that came to me, and he said, the Bible talks about that we're accountable for every idle word that we speak. Mm-hmm. And if we would start realizing that we are responsible for all the words that we speak, good or bad, and that every word that we speak, if it's a good word that we speak, it plants that good seed. When you think about seeds, you think about a kernel of corn. When that kernel of corn is planted, it grows a stalk. That stalk has several ears of corn on it, which has tons of kernels of corn on there, and it produces more and more and more. And your words, whenever you speak them, you may not see the production of that fruit that day, but down the road, that production of that fruit is going to come forth. So make sure that you are speaking and giving positive words and planting good seeds to those that are around you.
Yes. The devotion goes on to say, to understand this issue fully, you must first recognize how your own family history and the culture around you can shape the way you communicate.
Yes.
We live in a smart aleck, sarcastic, and immoral culture. Words are thrown around as if they don't matter, and people are treated as though they have little worth. Just watch a little television and you'll get my point. This is so true. We see it in marriage relationships and people that are dating, and friends, co-workers, wherever you go. People think it's cute to be smart alecky.
Yes.
And, I'm guilty of it just as much as anybody is, I guess. But they're really, even when we say things in a cutting up way,
That's right.
I know myself, people have said things to me cutting up, but then I've thought, is there really some truth to that? Do they really think that of me? And it's important that we weigh our words before we speak them.
Well, a lot of times when we're cutting up, we are trying to make a point.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll deny that to the death, most of us. But the reality to it is, so many times when you're cutting up with someone, you're saying something to them in a cut up manner, but you're really trying to get a point across to them. And I've been guilty, and I know that it's been done to me, and I know that I've done it to others. So we need to pay attention to it. With our teenagers, they have their chat group with all their buddies, and they're always saying stuff to each other, and they're back and forth. And we've looked at it because we try to pay attention to what our kids are doing, and we're like, that was horrible. Why would you say such a thing? And our kids are like, well, they know we're playing. It's no big deal. Yes, I understand that mindset, and it shouldn't be a big deal, but words hurt. And those simple words can really hurt, and that person may say, oh, it's no big deal, I know you were playing, but it could set a root in them of hurt and agony that can last for years. Yeah. We know of situations, and it's been proven in studies, that children, things that are said to them by their parents, haunt them for their whole life. Mm-hmm. And they form bad habits because of something that was said to them, or they have low self-esteem because of something that was said to them. And not that parent ever meant to tear them down or hurt them, but just a little word just can be sown into that person's spirit, and then over time it produces fruit that is negative and bad for that individual. A lot of times whenever people are struggling as adults, you go to talking to them and you'll say, well, what happened and why do you feel this way and why do you have low self-esteem? And so many times it's like, well, so-and-so said I was ugly, so-and-so said this, or, and it just stays with them for a long, long time. So guard your words in a major way and make sure with the ones around you and especially your spouse that you're speaking positive things over them.
In Ephesians, the word tells us that we're to edify one another.
Yes.
And build one another up. And when we're being cute and snarky and making these little snide remarks, that's not building anybody up. And I know that, a lot of times, you're saying that sometimes there's some truth behind what we say cutting up. And sometimes there's not.
That's right.
Sometimes, I just think it'd be funny to say this and I say it. But then when that other person hears it, the enemy comes in and plants these things in their mind because his whole agenda is to destroy us as Christians.
That's right.
And even people that are not Christians, he's looking for a way to destroy them and keep them from coming to God. And when we take those things and we're questioning in our mind, well, did they mean anything by that? Even if they didn't, these things can still be so detrimental. So we really need to pay attention to every word that comes out of our mouth.
Absolutely.
And I know that I definitely need work in that area. Yeah. And I would venture to say most of us do.
Well, even just this week, with all the social distancing and everything that's been taking place for the weeks that's been going on, I read a post on Facebook where someone said that they ran into somebody and they said, I have missed you. And this individual, and they may watch it because they're local, they said, I never knew how much it meant for me or to me for someone to say they miss me. Those words, I missed you or I love you or I've been thinking of you, I care for you, those words have a powerful impact.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't realize the impact on it until later. You look at the negative things that are spoken to people or spoken over people, it goes for a long time and it lasts for a long time. Growing up, I had some negative things said to me over and over and over and over. And after those things were said to me so many times, I started to question, is that who I am?
Right.
Is that what I am? Is that, are they speaking some type of reality or truth over me that I don't even recognize myself? And the enemy went in there and started causing me all kinds of turmoil within myself because of what my siblings had said to me repeatedly over and over, and the names that they had called me. And you think about that was years ago. And still today, at my age, in my 40s, I can still, in my subconscious mind, hear what they spoke over me and the words they spoke over me. So make sure you realize, take your words into consideration before you speak them.
It's just as easy to pay a compliment
That's right.
and to say something kind. And we need to try to train our minds to go in that direction instead.
Absolutely. Also, if you are from a verbally abusive family or have lived in a negative verbal environment, you will have the tendency to follow that pattern or behavior. We all follow patterns and behaviors. It's important to realize the unhealthy manner in which those around you communicate and to refuse to follow suit.
Yes.
If you will notice, you can see that those who are impure, ungodly, or negative in their speech do not have good relationships. And that is so true. That is so true. I see people that are negative and condescending and hateful, and they're miserable.
Yeah.
And they don't have anyone around them, and they get more and more negative and more condescending and more hateful, and then more and more people pull away from them. I don't want to be, and you don't want to be watching that old person in the nursing home dying alone because you've been a bitter, negative, hateful person and nobody wants to be around you. Words are like seeds again. If you don't like the harvest in your marriage, there's good news. You can change seeds and the harvest will change. You have power. You aren't helpless and you aren't a victim.
Yes.
You have the power of death and life in your tongue. Unleash that power toward your spouse in a positive manner, and you will see the truth of what the Bible says. And I love that, the way that it says that, but I want to remind you, all those negative seeds that you planted, the fruit of those seeds are still going to be coming up. So when you start planting positive seeds, you've got to realize those positive seeds have to have time to get in there
Yes.
and overpower all those negative seeds. And you know, I love working in the yards, and I've planted in our yards a bunch of new plants, and they're blooming plants, and they're to grow and they're to be pretty, but those weeds are always there, and I have to be at a continual state of pulling weeds. And last year when I started planting this flower bed where we are now, last year the weeds were horrific. Well, this year the weeds are still there,
Right.
but they're not as bad, and I'm still working on keeping those pulled. So just remember, if you say, "Oh, I just love you, you're so sweet today," that don't mean all those negative things are going to be erased.
Well,
You're going to have to cultivate what you want to have in your marriage.
Definitely. Just like in nature, it takes time for that harvest to come.
That's right.
You don't plant a seed and then harvest that corn the next day.
Exactly.
It takes time for that to grow and mature and ripen.
That's right.
And it's the same way with our words.
I-
You can't say, well, today I'm going to be kind and then expect a whole new world tomorrow.
Well, and absolutely, because, you know, it does take time, and those positive words may lay seemingly dormant for a long time, and then all of a sudden they spring forth.
Yes.
We planted a vegetable garden also in containers, and we planted some okra, or okra, or however you say it. And I told Crystal just the other day, I was like, it's not growing. It's there. It's the same size it's always been. It's not growing. And we've watched it week after week, and it's like it's done nothing. And this morning I was out there, and I was like, holy moly, this okra has started growing, and it's just shot up. And it's amazing that I see that in that plant and in that seed that was there. And you got to realize your positive seeds may take some time
Yes.
before they grow. They may be planted, they may have root, they may be taking good root and getting established, but you may not see the result until time later. And you know, there's going to be times in it where it's going to be nothing, and then it's just going to grow. I planted some ivy years ago, and a little neighbor that we had back when we were in Georgia, she told me, she said, ivy does something. She said, the first year you plant it, it sleeps. The second year, it creeps. And then the third year, it's going to leap. And I thought, well, that's just really strange that she would tell me that. And with ivy, that's a reality that I found. When you plant it, it's like it doesn't do anything. And the next year, you'll see a little bit of growth. And then that following year, it's like, bam, it's there. And with your planting of positive seeds, those seeds may sleep the first year. They may sleep the first 2 years.
Right.
There's no telling how long they may sleep, but trust that you planted it,
Yeah.
and that the positive's going to come about. And you know, it may creep, but then it's going to leap, and you're going to be like, wow, I finally see results.
Amen. Well, you know, if your marriage is in a state of disrepair, I guess is the right term to use, or things are not like you want them to be, sometimes it's hard for us to find those positive words to
Yes.
say. I would suggest, if you don't have anything positive to say to your spouse, first of all, just think about what we talked about last week and the week before about speaking with kindness. And then secondly, if you can't come up with one good thing about that person, pray and ask God to show you something.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
there's something good there, or you wouldn't have married them in the first place.
Right.
And sometimes we forget what that was.
That's right.
And we have to be reminded and say, Lord, I know that so-and-so has a good quality. Please show me what it is. And then make sure to compliment that.
Right.
And, you know, it may not be something that comes naturally to you to begin with. But as you practice it more and more and you look for the good things, you'll
That's right.
start to see more good things.
I don't remember who it was or what the situation was, but we were trying to make, I believe, one of our kids say something positive about somebody. And they were like, there's nothing positive about them. And we're like, there's something good that you can say. And they were like, there's nothing good about this person. And we were like, there's something good you can find and say. And they said, well, they dress good. Hey, there's a start.
Right.
There's a start. And then it was like, well, they keep their nails good. Well, that, you know, there's another thing. It may take some time to find those good qualities, but look for those good qualities, find
Yes.
them. And you know, maybe your spouse cleans up good. You know, when they bathe on Saturday, maybe they clean up good. And you can say, hey, you look good today, or you clean up good.
Compliment their smell.
There you go.
Or whatever
You
it
smell good
takes.
since you got out of the shower, you know. So just find something and start wherever you can
Yes.
to make the effort to move forward.
All right, we're to the talk it up section. Talk it out. Answer, I'm sorry, I'm struggling today. Ask each other these questions and answer honestly but kindly. The first one is, do I communicate with you enough? Do you think I communicate
Sometimes.
with you enough? And vice versa.
That's right.
I think as a rule we do, but there's times that we don't.
That's right. Sometimes we just get busy.
Yeah,
There's
life
been-
can get in the way.
There's a lot of times in our relationship, we'll think we've talked to each other about it. And we're like, well, I told you. No, you didn't. And sometimes the kids will say, you told me. And we're like, okay, well, I knew I told somebody. But communication is something that everybody needs to work on.
And
We
I
need
think
to
that's
work on it.
especially important for us because as pastors, parishioners tend to think if
Yes.
they've told him, they've told me. If they've told me, they've told him.
Yes.
And I've told people many times, sometimes life just gets so busy. We're like two ships passing in the night, and
Mm-hmm.
we may or may not take that time to share details of the day with each other.
Right.
We need to, but we don't always.
Right.
So it is especially important that we take time to communicate with each other.
I guess one thing that we need to say with ministry, if you want Crystal to know something, you need to tell her. And if you want me to know something, you need to tell me.
Yeah. I
And,
try,
you know,
but I don't always get the message relayed.
But that's the reality of communication. If I want someone to know something, I need to talk to them.
yes.
I don't need to tell somebody else.
Right.
And so often, even in marriage, we'll talk to somebody else about our issues with our spouse, but we'll never tell our spouse.
Right.
How is that spouse supposed to know what's going on if you don't communicate it
They
with them?
won't.
That's right.
All right, the next question is, do I communicate praise and appreciation to you enough?
You do, but I've got to learn to accept it.
That's good.
And so many times, you know, you'll say stuff to me and I'm like, yeah, you love me. That's why you're saying that. Or what do you want? You know, and I think that's the case most of the time with the wife when the husband's like, oh, honey, I love you. What do you want? Back
Yeah.
away. So what about it with me? You need to answer that question. Do I communicate praise and appreciation to you enough?
So, yeah,
Do you? Good. I get a check on that
I
one.
do. Here's your sticker.
All right.
Have I spoken negative or hurtful words that I need to apologize for? And this is not rehearsed, y'all. We just, on the
Yes.
spur of the moment here, I threw him under the bus this time.
You're good at apologizing for your negative stuff because I'm good at pouting. So, and I'm good at sulking and you're good at apologizing. I know I fail at apologizing because you've told me that I fail at apologizing. And that's, you know, you are good at that.
But I do see where you make an effort to.
Yeah, I do. Not probably as much as I should, but I do. And for us, we have a uniqueness in our relationship because if she's apologizing and trying to be sincere, and if she starts getting emotional, I get frustrated. And it's because of my past and some things that happened in my life. And she, for a long time, she said, I can't cry. I can't get upset. I can't cry because you get angry. You know, even if it's an apology, if she was crying and she was trying to apologize.
I'm a crier.
Yes.
I cry when I'm happy. I cry when I'm upset. I cry when I'm sad. I mean, it's not when the spirit's moving on me, I cry. That is my go-to emotion. And because of some things in his past, he saw that as being manipulative.
Yes.
And I had to say, hold up, I'm not so-and-so.
Right.
I don't use tears as manipulation.
That's right.
If I'm crying, it's sincere. And I see where you have tried to, but I still kind of find myself on guard too.
Right.
That I would check myself, okay, whatever you do, don't cry. Even though I know that we've discussed it and it would be okay for me to now, it's still something that I try to hold back on.
Well, after 20-something years, we still have to work through that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I want the people that are struggling in their marriage to realize, you know, we believe we have a good marriage. I feel very confident we have a good marriage, but we still have issues. We still have things to work through.
Yes.
We still have battles to overcome. We still have obstacles to overcome. We're by no means a perfect couple or perfect marriage, but we want to make progress, and we have made progress, and at least we can. If you do apologize and you cry, you can, and for me, I had to work on myself. It wasn't her issue that was the problem there. It was my issue that I had to work on. So, it didn't happen overnight. It took me years of working on it, and it's still going to be more years. Maybe by the time you're 98 and I'm however old I'll be when you're 98, we'll have that ability to do what we need to do.
Yeah.
The next section is walk it out, and this is our last section. Write down several positive, affirming things you would like to say to your spouse. Putting them down on paper first helps you select just the right words. Exchange papers sometime before the next week devotional time. You may be battling a battle on your own to try to restore this marriage as far as listening to our devotions. Write down something positive about your spouse. Write them a little note just to say, hey, these are some of the things I admire about you. If they never reciprocate, it's okay. But again, as we say in every one of these sessions, do your part.
Yeah.
Do what you can do.
You're not responsible for the other party,
Not
but
at
you
all.
are responsible for you.
Right. Even we were talking about apologies earlier. She's good at apologizing. I've had to work on apologies. She's worked on her part. She's done her part. It's up to me to do my part. And, thankfully.
And it's not easy for me to apologize.
Right.
And it's something I've had to work on within myself even before we got married.
Well, we're both
But-
strong-willed.
Yes, we are.
We're both very strong-willed.
We
we're
definitely
both
are.
bullheaded and strong-willed
We've
and
said our
independent.
children don't have a chance of being anything but because they got a
Right.
double dose of it.
Right. It's funny I say we're independent. We're so independent, but we're so codependent too.
Yeah.
It's like we
In a healthy way,
yeah,
not
in
in
a
an
good
unhealthy
way.
way.
But most of all, just be kind. Let the words come out of your mouth that you will be able to be proud of.
Yes.
If it's going to come out of your mouth and you're going to be ashamed of it, try not to say it. And that's one thing. If you wouldn't want your pastor to hear you say it, you shouldn't say it.
Right.
If you wouldn't want your parent to hear you say it, you shouldn't say it. If you wouldn't want the mayor of the city or some bigwig person to hear you say those things, maybe you shouldn't say them to your spouse or those that are around you. So guard your words, and remember the scripture tells us we're accountable for every idle word that we speak.
Yes.
You're accountable, and when you stand before the Lord, what are you going to be able to say?
Right.
We love you. We hope we've been a blessing to you. God bless you. We'll see you soon.